Good evening, one and all. Many greetings of peace and love to everyone watching us over Zoom and also on the YouTube. I'm Jyotika and I once again welcome you all to our second session of online talk series. It is said you can't just give up on someone because the situation is not ideal. Great relationships aren't great because they have no problems. They are great because both people care enough about the other person to find a way to make it work. Major part of our life is occupied with human relationships. One of the main pursuit of our effort is to experience happiness in relationships. While all the struggle and effort seems towards creating that harmonious relationship, many a times the same relationship becomes the cause of our sorrow and pain. We have various relationships with various individuals and they come with various personalities. With some, it seems as though I had an eternal loving relationship, and with some others, it feels a burden, very difficult and messed up. How can I deal with such individuals? Am I bound to put efforts to restore a messy relationship? Why should I actually? Why not them? What effort, wisdom, and powers I need in such relationships? Today, Jim Ryan will deal with such aspects. I'm sure today's topic, dealing with difficult and messy relationships, is an ever hot topic. The event is being jointly organized by Raj Yoga Center, Dubai, UAE, the Meditation Space DMCC, Dubai, UAE, Raj Yoga Center for Self-Development, Muscat, Oman, and Doha Meditation Space from Qatar. And today we have Jim Ryan, who is the management consultant, teacher, and author, to throw light on today's topic. It is my great pleasure to introduce him. Jim Ryan is a long-time student of Raj Yoga meditation. He lectures extensively both in UK and Europe on various subjects such as spiritual philosophy, meditation, and self-development. He is the author of 5 books. His presentations are a blend of humor, lightness, in-depth philosophy, and practical, up-to-date strategies. Some of you might have benefited from his sharings personally when he has visited us. And personally, I had some beautiful moments of interaction with him. I have seen a keenly observing mind which makes him see the best and share the same with everyone. His observations are based on some deep philosophy and experiences. Welcome, Jim Ryan, and over to you.
Many thanks. Well, good evening to everybody. Nice to be with you all and to share, even though we're electronically, but this is, we connect through the ether, through the electronic vibration, so it's really great. I'd like to start with a little story. I think it's always good to start with a little story, isn't it? And there was 2 followers of a great master, and they were debating what would be the best way to bring up, to teach their children. And one of them said, well, to really teach children, you really got to make them apply them, to make them follow the rules, the regulations, to follow assiduously, to really, apply themselves systematically. They should be revising, learning, and applying it in a very focused way. Now, the other follower, as you can well imagine, disagreed with this completely. Oh, no, he said. learning really is about opening ourselves up creatively, in a relaxed, spiritual, open way, and explore things in a kind of unlimited way, and let things become kind of open, and let learning emerge naturally and in a kind of natural, harmonious way. And of course, they couldn't resolve their issues. So they said, well, the only way we can resolve our problem is, of course, to go to the great master. So they went to their great master, and there he was sitting there in his long white beard, of course. And and the first follower said, "Look, great master, isn't bringing up children about, teaching them systematically and making them apply themselves in a very focused, kind of concentrated way, and so on?" And the great master sat back and stroked his great long white beard and said, "You're absolutely right." Now, of course, the other fellow was absolutely shocked that his beloved master would agree to such a thing. And he said, "But master, surely it's you know, we should be teaching children in a loving, open, relaxed, creative, and allow them to go with the flow and let learning emerge naturally," and so on. And the great master sat back and he stroked his long, great white beard and he said, "You're absolutely right." Now there was a third follower that was sitting down by the master's feet. And he said, "But master, they both can't be right." And the great master looked down and said, "You're absolutely right as well." So it's it's a lovely story, isn't it? Giving us a kind of an insight into how we see things, isn't it? That giving us a kind of a lesson that we all see things so differently. Um, each one's perception, each one's take on life and how we go about them is unique and is right according to that person's position and where they are. And I think with this kind of understanding and with this kind of awareness, our relationships will be so much better. But unfortunately, we don't live in an idealized world, and we don't live in a kind of a very an accepting world. And our relationships, aren't they? It was a bit like chocolate in hot weather, soon goes into meltdown, and things become very messy and not so pleasant to handle. And I think relationships, I think at this time, my take on relationships at this time, I think it's a bit like living in a house where everything is falling down around you. Um, wherever you look, things seem to be going wrong. Um, but we're so used to it, isn't it? It seems to be the norm. It's what happens, isn't it? It seems to be what happens. We moan and we groan and we blame, but we just carry on. Many just ignore the situation, ignore the chaos, and we patch and we fix things up temporarily. But eventually, I think what happens is that everything collapses, and then we pack up and run away, and hopefully we start again somewhere else. A kind of a scenario of our time at this particular time, isn't it? Doesn't seem to be anything of permanence or any kind of ability to resolve things. And so, what I'd like to look at this evening is maybe three main relationships, what I would see as our three main relationships. And I think they're all related as well. And I think which the three relationships I really like to look at, I think we need to work on them, we need to heal with them and help us to move into a more positive space. So I'm going to do, if I can share my screen, you'd bear with me if we don't go into kind of a meltdown. If I can do this and this, yes, we're away. And I'd like to look at these our three main relationships. And I think these are maybe we haven't got time to explore, but I think really these are eternal relationships, constantly with us. And you'd be surprised, I think, even God, I think, is an eternal relationships. But our first relationships is with ourselves. We often tend, I think, not to really like ourselves too much. I don't know if you'd agree with that. We feel we don't meet or experience the idealized self that our parents, education, and society project as what we should be like. And so there's always I feel, a nagging discontent within ourselves. Our second relationship that I think we need to look at and focus on is with others, of course. And these are the ones we kind of like, we often tend to blame, isn't it? We often kind of, we feel they don't give us what we want. They don't cooperate. They don't support our plans and needs. It's always their fault, isn't it? And that kind of often relationships are a bit like a simmering volcano, waiting to blow at any particular time. And our third relationship is with God. And I think everybody actually, maybe at this particular time, is not so strong. I think we all have, or we've had, a relationship on some level or not with God. Maybe at this particular moment we're estranged, or we're divorced, or we're separated, or in kind of dispute. Or and occasionally we chat and say, "Oh, do you remember me? Maybe you can help me a little bit." But in a way, in the essence of it is, I think there's a general feeling about God, isn't it, that at this particular moment, that he's supposed to be very powerful. He's one that can make everything work. And so we pray, we call out, yet nothing seems to change. And we're not too happy with him. So it's interesting to not sort of look at what's led to this particular state. Why has this occurred? If I can move my slides on a little bit, I think I'll just move on there. And as you can see, that what's happened is that I think that because of our particular attitudes and consciousness, we found ourselves trapped, imprisoned. A prison of imposed and self-imposed attitudes and beliefs. A jail that prevents us from expressing and experiencing a better, more positive and happier lifestyle. And leaving us, of course, as this poor little chap you can see there, miserable, irritable, depressed, angry, then we're not a particularly nice person to know, are we, when you're like this? And of course, we wonder why then when we connect with others, we transmit that attitude, and we wonder why our relationships are not so harmonious and not so kind of fruitful and so on. And maybe if we could kind of step away and see that everybody's in a particular, I would say everybody's in their own little box. Everybody's trapped in their own little particular prison. So it's interesting to maybe to look at some of the factors that are kind of trapping us, and that maybe we can get to maybe some kind of resolution to deal with our relationship with ourselves and others, and of course God, on an unlimited level. So we're trapped. Maybe you could also find many other kinds of factors that present us, but I picked out 4 here, which I think maybe we could say are the 4 main factors that cause us pain and cause us limitation. We're trapped by the prison of the past issues, past memories, and feelings that are there within ourselves. And we hold them, and they create resentment, and they create anger. Sometimes these are below the surface, that we cosmetize them, we hold them. They're there, and we haven't kind of resolved them. And something happens and they emerge. And it causes us a kind of reactive state within ourselves. We're trapped by a huge battery of fears, isn't it? That's probably the most recognizable thing today for everybody now, isn't it? The world seems to be kind of the epidemic of fear, isn't it? Fear of not achieving, fear of illness, isn't it? Fear of not being accepted, fear of failing, fear of not becoming what others and society want us to be, isn't it? A big pressure. Fear of isolation, fear of loneliness, isn't it? Change it. Go on. I could probably sing this song for a long time, isn't it? So many fears, isn't it, that kind of trap us and hold us, they anchor us, don't they, in this way? And of course, what do we like when we transmit, when we connect with others? The fear is there. It's kind of imminent in our vision, in our eyes, in our dealings. We're trapped by issues of identity, the imposed by the masks and the false identities. Generally, I would say many of these are initiated from an early age by parents, society, media, masks, and artificial identities, which we kind of parade and wear. That's not. It's a kind of this kind of form that we parade and show in front of others, hoping that it will win it. We will win it kind of approval of others. They'll be accepted. It'll enable us to succeed. And we become part of the gathering. If I can show this particular form that maybe I believe that will work in this circumstance. And but of course, after a while, we become that, or it takes us over. But of course, it's not us. And so we're trapped inside this kind of. There's a book, isn't it? Prisoner in the Iron Mask. I forget the novelist, but he was trapped. He was put in this iron mask, and I think we're a bit like that. We've got this mask, artificial mask of somebody else or some form. Then, of course, there's the blocks and the barriers of the influences. The influences, in general terms, isn't it, of materialism and consumerist ideologies, which constantly are programming us to adapt to the erroneous beliefs, the belief systems of dependency, accumulation, and physical need, isn't it? This is constant battery, constant kind of mantra of accumulation, buy, accept, have it, and so on. And of course, the more we get infected by these influences, we lose contact, of course, with our natural nature of spiritual goodness and experience. It seems a long distant way. The inner values and the outer values are just light years apart in that particular way. So there we are. End up as that poor little chap there. Well, some of us are anesthetized into submission, unaware, oblivious, just going along with whatever's happening. Some of us are just miserable or moaning in our little prison. Some desperate to escape, shouting to God, to society, to others, and trying in different ways to try and break out. I think there are people that maybe are proactively aware of some kind of restriction, trying many different ways, isn't it? Politically, emotionally, scientifically, or whatever, to try and get out. And all of them kind of their inner voice or outer voice is saying, "Get me out of here, solve my issues." Familiar scene? Does it ring any bells? So obviously, our next question is, how can we free ourselves? I mean, this is the kind of conundrum. This is what spirituality kind of we bring up this scenario, don't we? We say, well, this is the state of affairs, but how can we free ourselves? And psychology and all the different forms of therapy are desperately aware of influences and aware of all these effects, but I feel they're still using the things of the prison to try and resolve the things of the prison. And what's happening is that in our little prison, we're being crippled, restricted, blocking our energy, positivity, completely sabotaged in that way. And then we can begin to see, can't we, the cause and failure and breakdown of our relationships. The cause is within ourselves, within our prison here. But because of our awareness is external, because we've externalized our consciousness, we feel things are caused by others. We feel they're caused by society. But in fact, it's quite interesting that the issues of our prison are being created by ourselves, by our own choices. We are our own jailer. So in fact, what's happened is we've imprisoned ourselves. You've trapped yourself. So maybe if this is the case, if we've imprisoned our case, we can then free ourselves. And I think this is the message of spirituality, is that we have within us, within our awareness, within our capabilities, the awareness, the methodology, the ability to break free of this. And what we can do is we can take 3 steps. And as you can see here, there's 3 steps that we can do to free our mind, to free our consciousness. And the first one is visualization. The second is connection. And the third is release. And so maybe we could do this together to kind of like see what really I'm kind of like part of my theory is saying, is that first of all, visualize a starlight energy in front of your mind, a beautiful energy, a beautiful pulsing, vibrant light. Connect with this light, just connect with it, with your mind, and then integrate, fill yourself with its light and its power. And then release it. It's there, but release it. Kind of visualize it mentally, kind of allow it to kind of feel it, kind of breaking out inside your being. Allow its light to spread throughout your being, throughout your mind, just pulsing, filling yourself with this incredible, energetic, lucent, powerful light energy. And so what's happening is there occurs an explosion of pure white light. And this is the light of pure spiritual energy, pure consciousness, spreading through our being. And this release of spiritual power, what happens is it breaks down the walls of our prison, dispersing our fears, worries, anxieties, freeing us from the effects of the past. All these things are related to our past. And what we're doing is we're positioning ourselves in the present. This is what spirituality does. It enables us to ground ourselves, position ourselves in a center of light, in a center of self-awareness, where the things of the past don't exist. The things of the future are ahead of us. But where we are now, we're centered, grounded in spiritual self-awareness. And so we move away from the illusions of all the influences and we connect with this true innate spiritual nature. But the question is, of course, okay, that's kind of, it's a momentary experience. And what we need to do is we need to hold this particular state. We need to embed it in our experience. We need to fix it in our awareness, in our mind. Otherwise, it's gone. It'll just quickly disperse. Because what happens is our ego, which has been attacked at that particular moment, our false ego, is being kind of knocked out. This explosion of spiritual light, it disables the false ego, kind of the ego that's causing us pain. It's holding on to all our fears, anger, and all the stuff, right, that we want to get rid of. It kind of knocks it out. But very quickly, what happens is the ego will recover and it will try to reimpose our prison palace. It's very quickly. And so what we need to do, the next step, is we need then to fix it in our awareness through an affirmation, as you can see on the screen there. what we're doing is we're affirming this experience. We're kind of saying this experience is right and true, and I want it to become part of me. Shall we do this? Let's repeat this affirmation. And what's happening is that we're talking to ourselves. You're not talking to anybody else, but we're talking to our subconscious nature. Subconscious is our jailer, really, the jailer. If we're going to kind of refine it, the subconscious holds our fears, our anxieties, our pain, everything that we kind of have experienced or we're holding on to is held in our subconscious nature. And what we're doing is we're introducing another kind of program, a program of positivity. And we're saying to our subconscious, look, this is what I am now. I'm not this anger. I'm not this fear. I'm not all these other stuff. No. What I'm doing is I'm light. And I'm going to experience this light. I then become this light. And what happens is the jailer of the mind, the ego, says, okay, this doesn't seem to be too bad. I kind of like, we allay its fears, and we kind of, it enables it to be accepted. It doesn't see it as a threat. So let's just affirm this through spiritual awareness. This is meditation. Meditation is where we reprogram our awareness. We reprogram our consciousness, and we change the patterning. We're changing the formation that has been embedded over a period of time through wrong awareness, through wrong thinking, through wrong philosophy, and so on. And so what we're doing now is we're just taking our life, taking our awareness into our own hands. So I am this light. I experience this light, and I become this light. And you hold it. We experience it, so we acknowledge it, we experience it, we become it. I am this light. I experience this light. I become this light. And so what we're doing is that we're releasing our dormant creative consciousness, this inner state of love, light energy. And it brings immediate change of power and awareness. Immediately there is a kind of reassertion and a kind of a reconnection with our own reality and with our own truth, because it is part of our truth. The other is a kind of a superficial philosophy or a superficial effects that's been imposed, which we allowed ourselves to be kind of transposed. And so it has no power, it has no roots, it has no hold. Its only hold is through illusion, that we believe we need these things. And so we kind of convince ourselves, because materialism, consumerism is saying, you need this, you've got to have this. If you don't have this, you're going to be in trouble. If you don't wear these shoes, if you don't have this big car, if you don't, you're going to be. And so we can't, there's a fear, isn't there? That, I better do this, I should follow that. I'm going to be in big trouble. I'll be at, it's like all the vaccinations. You've got to have this. If you don't, this is going to happen to you. And so what we're doing in spirituality is saying, no, we're connecting with our power center. So what's happened? So what's occurring? What's occurring? Meditation, spirituality helps us change. We're changing the way we see and perceive. Like this saying from Proust. He says, the real voyage of discovery lies in seeking new landscapes, seeing with new eyes. It's like we're seeing now ourselves, our world, and others with a different kind of clarity now. Things now are different. We had this veil of pain that we looked through, this veil of kind of false philosophy that was implanted in different ways. And we kind of like saw things and perceived things through that. But what happens now, of course, we now open our third eye. This is the eye of awareness. It's the eye of wisdom, enabling us to see depth, meaning, what is real and true, enabling us to become free and freeing ourselves from the initial superficial judgments and limited awareness. Now our spiritual mind helps us to see the bigger picture. We can see things now on a bigger scale of things, and we can see the connectedness of all things. And of course, we begin to see ourselves and others in a different light, in a more compassionate light, a more understanding light. It's just that, we see it. It's obvious. It's like when you see, you go at a tree and you see it's a tree. You don't need to kind of intellectualize it. We see a car, it's a car. So in the same way, when we see ourselves and others, we know. You know who they are. We know who ourselves are. Because the third eye is the eye of clarity. And the awakened mind now sees things from many different perspectives. And what we can use, and what it always uses, we can use symbols to help guide us. And this is one of the kind of processes, I think, that the spiritual mind uses. And I've got a little picture here, like there. And before, we just saw this as an orange, isn't it? It's really a mango. No, it's really an orange. But is it an orange? And they become, the spiritual mind, the third eye, uses things of the physical world as a teaching tool. Maybe we can see it as a symbol to teach us about introversion. For example, you can use this example. The outside of the orange is bright and colorful, but bitter, tasteless. There's no goodness. It's like our external world. But to experience the sweetness, the goodness, we need to go inside. It's like you go inside. So this is again using the orange as a symbol to give us awareness, to help us understand in that particular way. And what happens is that often, that our ego would try to block and deny what maybe others are saying. We constantly, our greatest kind of enemy, our greatest battle is with our ego. And what happens is, what happens, we become, when we use symbols of nature, we become more open maybe to the lessons and teachings of nature. And it's quite easy to kind of use that. If we listen to others, we tend to it's a kind of clash of egos. And it's quite interesting, isn't it, that many of the great teachers throughout time, all the great teachers, all the great writers and speakers and religious leaders, used symbols, used analogy to highlight, to deepen people's awareness of spiritual truth in that particular way. So let's look at, say, maybe how we can use symbols to help us understand, and how it can translate in our relationships, maybe about ourselves. How can we improve the relationship with ourselves using symbology? So we've got a tree here. We could pick anything really. And the tree as a symbol can be used to discover maybe deeper things about ourselves. For example, so the qualities of a tree: acceptance, generosity, stability, flexibility, benevolence, openness. What's it teaching me? I can be the same. Apply it. I can become happier, kinder, less critical, more content if I apply these to myself. And then to embed it, to kind of make it clear, to hold it. Then we create a reflection. I'm like a tree with qualities of kindness and acceptance. My life now becomes one of peace and contentment. Now I'm able to have improved and happier relationships. So kind of like it's helping me to understand myself, helping me to kind of open myself to myself. As the third eye opens, we can begin to kind of use transformational consciousness, reflective awareness. And also it's very interesting that we then improve, kind of a knock-on effect as we improve our relationship with the physical world. We begin to see its qualities, we begin to see its beauty, we begin to see its role in the great scheme of things in that particular way. So maybe what about others? Our relationship with others, that our biggest challenge probably, isn't it? Our emergent uh, positive energies can help us maybe change our old programmed stereotypes of judgmentalism, negativity, and anger. So, look, we've got an example here of this guy here, okay? Very gentle guy, looks, but our vision, so we're seeing differently. I can see, we can, kind of an affirmation. I can see my spiritual brother. He's playing a role through. I can't see what's there. He's playing a role through his natural spiritual nature. Is pure, and he's loved by God. So it's like I'm kind of giving myself a kind of a different approach to relationship. At present, he's under an influence. He's forgotten his true, real nature. I understand this. It's like I understand why he's like this. And my thoughts are of compassion and loving support. So we move into empathy, compassion, and true support simply by seeing and understanding. What the basis of our awareness is our emergent inner nature, which filling our awareness and so translates into our spiritual vision, which immediately we begin to understand and see others now differently. Maybe move on quickly to maybe our relationship with God. Maybe for many others, for many, maybe this is a distant relationship or a relationship that's not even entered their awareness. Maybe they've forgotten. Maybe it's replaced by other forms of God, artificial gods, I think maybe we could all agree on that are there, so many football teams are gods, isn't it? Everything, so many kind of aspects, how God has been replaced. But we can use symbols to, again, to revive our awareness, come closer and to kind of recreate that connection with a higher being, which is, again, it's like we're going backwards a little bit, but why? Because through our connection with God, we then can regenerate our inner power. We can then restore our consciousness back to the level where it should be. And so again, we write down the qualities of the sun: illuminating, regenerative, healing, transformative, energizing. But then we translate it into the sense of applying it to our life. How can we apply this? Whereas devotion was really just about standing back passively, calling out to God, stating God's qualities if you didn't know them already, and at the same time asking, begging, crying out for kind of for something, but underneath it, it's just for a release. All our prayers and all our kind of invocations were really aspects of us wanting to be released, experience spiritual freedom, and to become who we are. So God, so we can create an affirmation, a small mantra. God, the unlimited healing light, finishes my fears, fills me with, that's whatever you want, understanding and hope, giving me the capacity to love and share, enabling me to feel capable and content. So I stay in this light. So we're applying it. So we're applying our spirituality to my inner self, to my life, and to my relationships. And so as things begin to kind of unfold, I come closer to God. I begin to appreciate and restore that fractured relationship, that distant relationship, that relationship that maybe it's deep within my subconscious that there's a memory. Maybe I did have but I've forgotten it. And all I do now is just believe on some kind of being some far away. And so God comes closer, we come closer in that particular way. So we come in to see how our three relationships can be healed. But I want to just look at maybe one of the most difficult relationships, maybe focus a little bit on our relationships with others. You know, that the one we're having to face on a daily basis, having to kind of resolve and face all the issues that people are kind of confronting us with, and all the kind of difficulties that come into our life. Of course, meditation is a fantastic help. It positions us perfectly. I noticed that when things start to fall apart, we take, isn't it? It's based upon we take others for granted. It's usually this is the basis of when our relationships fall apart. But I think we need to kind of follow certain criteria to make this work. And William James says it's about attitude. He says our attitude at the beginning of an undertaking, which more than anything else will determine success. So we need to change our attitude to others. And spirituality, meditation is this process, but also we need to look at some of the criteria that we need for things to work. It just doesn't happen. You know, I don't just sit and have meditation and just walk out the door and things are going to be hunky-dory. No, it doesn't. You know, it doesn't work like that. We really need to think very, very carefully. It's a minefield, isn't it? Meditate, you know, our relationships is a minefield. You know, meditation is really a saccharin. It creates the necessary position, you know, of sweetness and acceptance. But we need to kind of look at some of the positions that we need to take with others. So I was going to look at a few here, some of the processes that we can adapt and take on board to help us with our relationships. There's so many, you know, that maybe we need to show more regard and respect for what others think and believe. You know, it's about listening carefully, unemotionally to what they're saying, and more importantly, to what they're intending. Many people, from my experience, can't find it difficult to articulate exactly their intention. And sometimes things come out in the wrong way. It's not what they intended. And so it's kind of like we have to kind of feel the pulse of this, in our dialogues. What are they really intending? What are they really saying? Maybe it's coming out a little bit brusque or a little bit kind of, a little bit in your face, a little bit too strong. But sometimes it's because they're in their prison. And the refinements of communication and careful interaction have not been really learned. And so it's kind of, we as spiritual healers need to kind of like understand that. And we have to allow others to be themselves. And isn't it so often, isn't it, that, you know, I talk about myself, we want to change others, you know. We change others to suit ourselves. And I think really it's about just don't interfere with anybody's role. I mean, this is probably a very difficult thing, isn't it? Parents and family members and at work and all that. We don't interfere with their role. It's about don't get entangled, you know. You know, each one, it's like on a spiritual level, we can step back and understand that everyone is trying to kind of untangle and make sense of their part and their purpose. And of course, things that are not seemingly kind of clear. And so we may catch things as they are kind of formulating. And then we have a bust up and we go accusations and so on. It's like we have to kind of always step back and have that kind of understanding. And I think everyone needs space. Everyone needs boundaries. We need to know where I end and you begin. I think conflict occurs when there is a constant invasion of boundaries, isn't it? We just have enough, isn't it? Happens so much, isn't it? In homes, the parents telling the teenagers you should do this, and they being honest, you shouldn't do this, or in a company, bosses directing others, constantly not allowing people to kind of, you know, devise or sort their own world out till it becomes clear. We haven't got the patience, or we haven't got the faith, or we haven't got the kind of understanding about that. Have no expectations or dependencies. I think it's about treating each other as unique individuals. We're all separate, but we're together. I think the key thing is they're not there for me. And this is within our family. They're not there for me. We're trustees, our children, our family, our mothers, our fathers, our friends, everyone. Nobody's there. We're actors on the stage, each individual, and each one is there in their unique space. And it's like they're not positioned to sort my life out or to give me, they're just doing their own thing in that way. So be yourself, isn't it? Be yourself. Don't try to be a people pleaser. Are you a people pleaser? Speak your mind, hold your position, make it clear where you stand. But I feel don't try to be a nice person. It may have short-term, it may short-term effects. It may work for a little while, But because there's a chronic need in all of us, to please and be accepted. But sometimes be who you are. It'll take courage. You may risk disapproval, even dislike. But I think ultimately you will find respect and self-respect. So it's by standing on your own truth. And then in a way, I feel then you won't really need in the end to rely on approval or validation from others. But I think be clear in your communication. I think this is a key one. Be honest, sincere, and clear what you would like to happen or you believe should happen. But I think it's about accept that compromise is the name of the game, I think, for us, isn't it? I think what happens is, of course, there's a lot of stuff that happens is when we kind of have interactions and kind of interconnections, we react a lot, don't we? We react, we jump in, and what happens is we make lots of assumptions and we create lots of imaginative scenarios, and the proverbial molehill becomes a mountain. And then we go into blaming, accusations, complaining, finger pointing, sulking. I think a lot of emotional turmoil can be avoided by just stepping back in our relationship. Just step back. I think this is where meditation helps a lot, doesn't it? Step into your own inner space and assess the situation. Weigh it up. Try to see the full picture, as we mentioned earlier. Just try to kind of weigh things up. Give yourself time, I think, to cool down. Agree for maybe more time, even when you're kind of connecting with others, to reconsider, to think things over. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? I think all of us can kind of share our experience on this, is that things that initially we thought was this formulate into something else, because this is what happens. We're too ready to jump in and put a label on something until it's actually formulated its true form. And so in a way, we need to then we can begin to control the situation, control our emotions. And of course, it's very helpful to become aware of our own emotions, our own feelings. And this stepping back gives us a chance to see where others are at. This is very important, isn't it? It's not just about us again, isn't it? What they're going through, what influences they're having to deal with. Do you use magic? I hope you do. The magic words. You know what the magic words are? I'm sorry. I appreciated what you said. I like your idea. What do you think? That's a good one, isn't it? What do you think? How often do you hear that at work or another place? What do you think? Thank you, isn't it? I understand your position. These are incredible. These are kind of magic talisman, aren't they? When we use them, things change. If you look at the person, immediately you turn around and say, "Thanks, so kind. That was so nice of what I heard and what you said." They change. A softness comes, isn't it? They transform. It's a metamorphosis. The rigid person in front of you that's suddenly changes, and they become soft. They become like a little child, isn't it? And this is our role. We're making children into flowers, making people into flowers. We're bringing love because it's triggering love. This is respect, isn't it? It's very powerful. Okay, some of you might be saying, okay, there are times I know I would admit that things get out of hand. Things become irrational, exaggerated, distorted, and words just make things worse, isn't it? And I think this is where meditation greatly works to change the atmosphere, to change the vibration, because this is what it works with. It works with vibrational energies. It changes the atmosphere, which was probably locking individuals or circumstances into kind of hard-pressed kind of circumstances. And what it does, it transcends the physical mind. Our spiritual heart connects with their spiritual heart. And it enables people then to bring about, a calmness, a calmness, triggering in them a different response. It helps to soften and helps to kind of open them up, pull them back from the kind of corner maybe that they found themselves in. Okay. Look at the time. I'll stop there. I'll stop there, and because we covered quite a bit there. So it's okay, Jessica. I'll stop now, shall I? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. It was a very wonderful and practical wisdom that you shared. And I'm sure we all have got a very new perspective of looking at our relationships and dealing with them if they are difficult and messy. I would request the participants, if you have any questions, you can post under my name. We'll try to cover up as many questions as possible. We have 15 to 20 minutes more, but would like to know if you would like to have guide us through the reflection, the silent reflection to all of us, and then take up the questions.
Well, whatever you think is best.
I think it is better that you take us and guide us through the
Okay.
silent reflection.
Maybe
And
what
I
I could
already
do.
have the questions.
Okay,
Yeah,
what I could
I
do is
already have the questions.
I'll go back to maybe we could start revision in a way. If I could go down here, if I could go back here, and we could start with a reflection. So maybe we could go over this and lead into a short reflection on freeing the mind. So again, let's just have the awareness of my own inner self, to step inside my own inner world and have this affirmation. Connect with this spiritual light. Feel this light exploding into your mind. A beautiful, soft, vibrant energy filling my mind and inner body. And let's affirm to ourselves, I am this light. I experience this light. I become this light. Just hold this for a moment. Feeling this light, feeling this energy. And now stepping into my inner world.
I think, Jim, you need to unmute yourself. I'm sorry to bother you in between.
Okay, I'll start again then. Okay. So let us start with our affirmation. I am this light. I experience this light. I become this light. Feel this light. Feel this energy. Feel this power pulsing through our own being. And stepping into my inner world of light and love, I let go of my old attitudes and thoughts, and I become easy and caring and full of understanding. And taking power and inner strength from the Supreme, I can hold myself in the center of awareness, in the center of love. And there comes the awareness that we are all connected. We're all part of the same collective, universal spiritual family. So let me have this understanding as I support each one to laugh and smile and find their way. Each in their way is wanting the best, doing what they can in the way they think best. Let me accept this. Let me respect this and have good wishes and pure feelings for all. Om Shanti.
Wow. Just hearing your guidance and looking at that image of the point of light in between the eyebrows brought us great vibrations. Many thanks. And I have few questions which are very interesting, and I'm sure they have come up from the experiences by the individuals. The first one is faith is one of the main ingredients in any relationship. And nowadays, this has reduced a great deal. Why and what can we do to restore it?
I missed the first bit. Faith.
Faith is one of the main ingredients in any relationship, and nowadays this has reduced a great deal. Why and what can I do to restore it?
Yeah, good question, isn't it? And not an easy question to answer. I think it's easy, but not at the same time, it's not easy. Again, I think it comes back to our own experiences, that everything comes back to how we perceive our world and how we perceive ourselves, that we've lost faith in ourselves, through following the wrong path, doing the wrong things, listening to others, being betrayed, and so on, manipulated and so on. And so we kind of have a very often bitter, often very suspicious take on others and the world. Very, that there isn't that total acceptance. And it's it's like you have to have faith to have faith. And maybe it's like, I was like, look, like when you see little children, a little child doesn't, when you see them going along the road, the mother is worried about everything. Oh, no, I should do this. And the little child is just walking along and they're in their own world. They're happy. They're focused on just the present. And they're just happy, just oblivious to everything. And it's like they're in the now. And I think this is the key factor, is that if we need, in a way, this practice of just focusing on who we are and just being present in the now. And it's like what we've mentioned, in the program, is that if we let go of the now, we recede into our past, which has all the all the turmoils and all the kind of the effects that we carry with us, all the hurts and all the kind of all the effects from others and all the letdowns and so on. But if we stay in the present moment, in the state of being, like a little child, a little flower, and just hold it. It takes a bit of time just to practice it. I mean, it's like it's a gradual practice, and then just enable us to enjoy that beauty of the now. Then I think what we're regaining faith in ourselves first of all, and then it percolates. We begin to see others with not such a suspicious vision, not such a kind of a vision of fear, or of a kind of a fear of being manipulated, or a fear of being misused. But maybe that's been our experience, or the experience we've seen with others. And I think we've got to just understand and say that, okay, others are like this, but it's not their fault. They're under an influence. They've stepped away from their light. They are little children also, and they've just taken on board a wrong awareness. And I think faith is something that we need to kind of work on for ourselves, but it comes back, I feel anyway, back to just having faith in who we are ourselves. It comes back to this realization that I am a beautiful being. I am light. I have awareness. And through that, my world changes. My vision and my interaction changes.
Wow, great. Thanks. And I'm sure when I look at myself as a beautiful being and have faith on that, then I'll be able to look at others with faith as well. And I'm sure that that faith in the self will come only when I am right inside. It's a very interesting thing that can happen in our inner world. And the next question is, how could we know that the freeing the spiritual mind is working to ourself?
Sorry, I wasn't not sure what you meant by that. Sorry.
Yeah, it is a question by a participant from Indonesia. How could we know that the freeing the spiritual mind is working to ourself?
Right. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. And I think this is always that we need to kind of keep checking. It's like not to just blindly carry on and do stuff, but to step back and just saying, is it working? Or what's the effect of this? And then when we begin to see there is benefit, there are, that I'm a little bit happier today, or people are a bit happy with me, and things are happening. I think it's like you begin to know, then it's like going back, it's having faith then in what you're believing. It's having faith in what you're doing, because you see the effect. You're kind of like you're calibrating it by the results. Sometimes I know that we can't always tell because it's like a seed. A seed is planted and the results maybe happen further down the line. But I think the immediate effect of the mind is that you start to feel better. You start to feel a bit happier. You start to feel a little bit more more open to others. The heaviness, the weight, the psychic cloud that we carry with us in our auric field is is lifting. It's going, and it's like you turn a light on, the darkness is gone, and it's like, and then, but what happens is, but immediately, kind of, we turn it off again, or we flickering between light and dark, and I think this is what sometimes happens. We say it doesn't work because you start to do the old things again. The old things reestablish themselves. So I think just to kind of become aware of it and just see the benefits that your practice is giving you and the benefits that's happening, kind of note it down even. We often tell students to kind of like, no, write down some of the positive things that are happening in your life. Are you now beginning, is it making a change in your relationships? Are you shouting at your kids less? Uh, are you having less car rage? Are you saying hello to the ladies in the supermarket just with a smile? You're showing in a practical level. These are all signs, isn't it? that your kind of consciousness is coming into a kind of more positive and a much more loving and not, you're becoming a nicer person, isn't it? This is what we want to become, a nice person.
And our next question is related somewhat to this last statement you made. You said in your sharing that hear others completely and emotionally, and also don't try to be a nice person. So these two things seem contradictory. How to
Yeah.
do it? And I know you also said to work on with your positive vibrations. So should I keep hearing if the other is constantly unreasonable and mocking?
Yeah, I think in a way it's a very good question, because our society often, this is how you're judged. You know, they're a very nice person. She's a very nice person, very compliant. She agrees with everything I said. Everything he says, oh, and you kind of hudgy, yes, yes, yes. And actually, it's not what you believe inside. It's not what, you don't, you believe something else. But because of the circumstances, because maybe that your boss, you're worried about losing your job, or you're worried about not being accepted as a positive person. Sometimes the issue is not with you. The issue is with that other person, and we blame ourselves. I think the whole thing is, at this particular time, at this particular age, is we have to be ourselves. It's the only time, I think, in cyclical history we have a chance to be ourselves, to know ourselves, to be ourselves, and to express that, and to share our truth, and to kind of and to share our uniqueness. Otherwise, we'll be somebody else. We can't. We How many masks have we created in our past? You know, the mask of when you go to work or with others and so on, false identities, you know. And of course, this creates pain, this creates suppression, this creates illness, and so on. It's a huge catalogue of effects when we're not ourselves. And so I think it's like, it is good to be a person pleaser, in the sense of just being nice and being kind and being accepting and listening to people. This is when we're a person pleaser, when we kind of say, what do you think? Or that's a good idea. Tell me about what you were saying. I'd like to hear more about that. You know, we come closer, we build relationship, but not in the sense of, in the negative sense, where we kind of go, we become kind of devotees at the temple of the person in front of us. You know, we're hajiing all the time, aren't we? You know, and of course, you know yourself, you're not happy with yourself. And I think probably subtly, the other person knows, they know that you're just doing it, but they're kind of using it because it suits them. Yeah, okay, got them out of the way. They're fine. They're agreeing. They're having to deal. But if you come up with it with what you feel, but if you express it in the right way, you express it in a pure way, in a loving way. So this is how I feel. You know, I know where you are, but this is how I feel. And maybe if at this particular moment, you know, that we can't resolve it, maybe we can come to this conclusion. I'll help you in the way you want to go, but this is where I'm at with this. You know, and I think hold that position, and I think people respect you so much more. They were, isn't it? You know that in my kind of experiences, people who were themselves, who express themselves, who, it doesn't matter how wacky or kind of bizarre, people love them. And people that are constantly just sitting there going, yeah, it's like a little toy. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Be
Yes, I mean,
yourself, isn't it? Be unique. You're very, every one of you is unique and wonderful. But you have sometimes, and there are others, maybe because of their inability to understand themselves, they are not accepting your role, and their role is slightly suppressing your position. But this is the challenge we sometimes have to face, is to say, no, okay, no, you make your own choices, and your choices then will become the power center for your own life.
Wow, I'm sure when you said this is the time to be what we are, this is a great statement, I think, and we'll have a very great experience of being in that. And I'm sure we all need to be in that self esteem, first of all, to understand the self and value
Yeah.
the self so that we can avoid some difficult situations in our relationship. And I think this can be a last question. This has come from a participant from Philippines. And when someone is being difficult, what is the best position must someone take when you can't walk away in the relations?
Put cotton wool in your ears, and it's a very difficult. It's a good question. It's a thing that happens to us all, doesn't it, from time to time, and that I think it comes down again to working with vibrational energies. You know, to have understanding that that person. Say you're dealing with a person that's not open to you, or it's not willing to kind of acceptance. They're under an influence, some kind of influence. And sometimes the influence can be quite severe, um, not only spiritual, but it could be metaphysical influences in many souls. And it's like having that compassion, having that understanding. It's like a child, going back to children, it's like, the mother, has a little child. And he says, no, I'm not going to eat this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go to bed. Blah, blah. Now, the mother doesn't reject the child. Well, they might do. So in today's world, they do terrible things to them. But I mean, in the classical sense, that you understand the child is hungry, maybe needs sleep. The child needs understanding. You kind of guide them into the right awareness, and you talk to them with kindness, but with firmness. And the same way, I think that we, our brothers and sisters outside, many of them are like little children. They're going through a lot of anxiety, especially today, isn't it? So much anxiety, so many things. And these are triggering their reactional behaviors. It's triggering their fears and all the kind of negative reactional behaviors. And it's like having good wishes and understanding that they're suffering, and I think really having very powerful thoughts. And like, as meditators, if you have a say a work relationship or a friendly relationship or somebody you're connected with, is maybe in the morning bring them in front of you in your meditation. Bring them in front of you, surround them with light, surround them with love, and talk to them. Talk to their subtle form and say, you know what, we're really friends. We can get on together. Don't worry about it. Just whatever you want to say, you know, just talk and surround them, but talk to their subtle form. This is their pure form, their higher self. And this is a very powerful way that you can help each other. Work on the subtle plane. I think this time now, that we haven't really spent much time really on this, but really, I think in our relationship, this is where really we're kind of going to now, that we'll have to work on this subtle level with each other, with our friends, our society. It's kind of physically now it's locked down, isn't it? We're not even allowed to get near each other. And so people are finding it's like the drama is actually distancing each other anyway. And so we need to communicate subtly with love, our subtle body of love, and connect. And we can heal each other, I think, probably more effectively than words. Words can be misinterpreted and are misinterpreted, but we can really talk with pure feelings and good wishes for that individual. And it'd be interesting, again, monitor it, work on that particular person or that relationship, and just see how they're changing. See the difference, and see how your kind of subtle spiritual energies are working. And it makes sure something for our meditations, and then we look forward to our meditations because we're serving, we're helping, and then we're not just sitting there going, meditation over now. Now we're actually make it proactive. Make your this meditation now is for the world. It's for our brothers and sisters. We're healing the world individually, societally, culturally. It's our role now, isn't it? All of us as spiritual angels. This is our role. What else do we do? We're there to give help and love and support and create a pure relationship of unity.
Many thanks for joining us today from UK all the way and
Oh, it was a long
your
journey. Long journey.
sharing your wonderful wisdom and experiences with all of us. And I'm sure we will have lesser complaints henceforth in our relationships with others as we work on our relationship with our own selves to begin with. To sum up, dear participants, we have gathered from many corners, many countries of the world today. I'm very happy to see you all, and Jim, there are many comments of thanks to you for sharing the wonderful wisdom. To sum up, point number one, three eternal relationships that need help and healing, and they are ourselves, others, and God. I might be imprisoned by influences, past, fear, and identity. To free the self from self imprisonment, visualize, connect, and release, we need to embed with our experiences so that we enjoy happy relationships. And another point is reprogram the awareness and repattern thoughts so that right shift can come in dealing with others. And a very practical one, use symbols extensively for reprogramming the awareness and free the spiritual mind. See others with love as spiritual brother and connect to God to fill the self with what you want in your life. This will restore the relationships with ourselves, others, and God, respectively. Many thanks for this
I'm
wonderful
amazed.
wisdom.
You look at that. How did you get so essential? That's brilliant. Incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all this. And participants, we'll have again another online talk, which is going to be the third and the last session of our series. And that is the talk by Mike George from UK again. And this time he'll be sharing on living and leading with purpose. And you can join us, our centers, Rajoga Center and the associated centers on the displayed social media links. And thank you for being with us tonight and keep connected with us. Subscribe to our channels so that we'll keep connecting with you with newer wisdom. Many thanks for joining us tonight and have a great evening.